We weren't born afraid to make choices. So many of us grew up in homes where if we made a mistake, we could be met with shame, possibly that love and approval were conditional, and success was praised, but failure was feared. And so the fear of choosing becomes really bigger than the pain of staying stagnant. So you can't think clearly when your body is bracing for danger, that you can't outsource your power and expect to feel aligned. I'm choosing to be committed to this because this is what I desire. This is where I want to be. Drop into your heart, because we want to drop out of the head. We want to come into the heart and ask yourself, if I wasn't afraid, what would I choose? Because clarity lives on the other side of your commitment. Decisions are declarations of self-leadership. And if you want to lead others, my friend, you got to first start with learning to lead yourself. Welcome back to the Coachable Podcast. This is the show where I talk about all things mindset, embodiment, and becoming the kind of leader that your soul came here to be. I'm your host, Tori Gordon, and today I'm going to deep dive into a topic that shows up constantly for high-achieving clients, and maybe this is something you've experienced, and that's the issue of indecision. More specifically, the kind of overthinking and analysis paralysis that keeps you stuck, disconnected from your body, and constantly second-guessing your intuition. So if you've ever felt paralyzed about which path to take or found yourself asking 12 different people for their opinion before making a decision, then this is an episode you're definitely going to want to listen to. So what I'm going to do is break down why this happens, what it really is costing you to be in analysis paralysis, and how to move from overthinking to having embodied clarity. So let's dive in.
I want to take a moment to share about a powerful mental health resource that has been a total game changer for me, and that's Anywhere Clinic. For the past 2.5 years, I've been working with an online psychiatric provider, and the impact has truly been incredible because therapy isn't just a tool for crisis moments. It's a tool for personal growth, emotional mastery, and overall wellness. And with Anywhere Clinic, you can get virtual expert care from the comfort of your home. Whether you're exploring ketamine therapy, you need medication management, or just a supportive guide, it's time to prioritize you. And you can by visiting anywhereclinic.com. You can book an online appointment for as low as $120 or check and see if your insurance covers it. So go to anywhereclinic.com because your mental health deserves it.
The first place I want to start is the hidden roots of indecision and where those stem from. So most people think indecision is really a mindset issue, but to be real with you, indecision is more of a nervous system issue. We weren't born afraid to make choices. You were actually conditioned to believe that there was a right choice and a wrong choice. And if you made the wrong one, typically what would happen is you'd get punished, rejected, or humiliated, whether that's by your parents, classmates, a potential lover. And so many of us grew up in homes where if we made a mistake, we could be met with shame, possibly that love and approval were conditional, and success was praised, but failure was feared. So I know for me personally, I learned at a very young age that when I did things right and when I made the right choice, then I got a lot of recognition and validation and love. And in the times where I was not fulfilling in those areas and coming up short, I felt like I could always do better. And I was scared to make any wrong choice. This was something I was, that really paralyzed me for years and years of my life, is really what was at the root of my perfectionism of thinking that I needed to do everything right and everything perfectly in order to be loved, accepted, or to belong. And so if you can relate to that in any way, it can have a huge effect on your ability to make decisions later in life. And it might make you overthink so much to the point that you feel like you're completely stuck. So now as adults, we associate that decision-making with risk, if that's the kind of environment you grew up in. And I love my parents to death and they did the absolute best they could, but this is just the culture and the society that we live in, right? And so when we fear that there is risk when it comes to, am I making the right choice or the wrong choice? we ask ourselves, like, what if I choose wrong? What if I lose everything? What if people laugh at me? These are the types of thoughts that we think to ourselves, right? And especially when it comes to staying in a relationship, leaving a relationship, taking a job, saying no, moving to a new city, right? Think of all of the things you've had to make big decisions around, even from the macro to the micro, and all of the thoughts that go on in your mind when it comes down to actually choosing. And a lot of it, that internal conversation and that internal critic, is really having a conversation around what happens if something goes wrong or if people don't respond the way you want them to. And so as a safety or coping mechanism to that, we oftentimes stay stuck or avoid decisions. And so this creates a loop of fear and avoidance that keeps us stuck. And so the fear of choosing becomes really bigger than the pain of staying stagnant. We're like, the brain is saying, you know what, we're safe here. What if we just don't do anything different and we know we'll survive? That's what's actually happening in the mind. Whereas you're feeling the internal conflict of needing to make a decision versus staying stuck. And so that's where I want to begin this conversation, where this roots from. And it oftentimes comes from deep conditioning and fear around black and white thinking, right and wrong decisions, feeling or fearing punishment or acceptance or approval if we do the quote unquote right thing. This is oftentimes where the good girl or good guy mentality starts to get developed, the overachiever, the perfectionism, the people pleaser starts to come online. And this is ultimately all having an influence on our ability to make thoughtful, intentional, and conscious choices. So I also want to kind of talk about the biology, technically, of overthinking, because we think all of that's happening in the mind. But physiologically, there's a lot happening inside the body. When you're overthinking, you're likely in a dysregulated state. Okay. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. If you have been listening to the show for a while, you have heard me talk about the importance of nervous system regulation. You've heard me talk about what it's like to be in a dysregulated state. And I'll just go on the record right now and say every poor decision you have ever made, all the unhealthy choices that stem from, you know, maybe we say something we regret later, or we make a decision that we regret later. All of that is coming from dysregulation. Not really, I mean, yes, it's coming from the mind as well, but it's coming from a stress response in the body. And just to recap, those are fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So if you are dysregulated, what fight might sound like is, I have to get this right or I'm going to lose control. That's what fight says. So I have to get it right or I'm going to lose control. Flight, if you are in a dysregulated stress response of flight, needing to leave the body or like leave the situation, that's going to sound more like just avoid it and maybe it'll go away, right? How many of us have thought about needing to do something, but we're like, oh, the credit card statement came in the mail. Nope. I'm just going to avoid that. Maybe it'll just go away. It's tax season, baby. But not in my world, because I don't live in that world. I'm acting like that's not existing. And if I'm just going to sweep it under the rug, I'll have to deal with it later, but I'm just going to forget about it and it'll go away. That's what flight says. Okay. So if you find yourself in an avoidant loop a lot of just trying to put things off, procrastinate, sweep things under the rug, this is a flight response. This is a dysregulated nervous system response that is happening as a byproduct of needing to make a decision or commit to something, right? Now, freeze says, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. That's when you literally just go into tense, tight, kind of frozen state, and you are flooded with overthinking. You're flooded with emotion. You're flooded with all of those anxious thoughts about, what if I make the wrong choice? What if something goes wrong? What if they reject me? What if they don't like me? What if they laugh at me? And that overwhelms and floods your system. And freeze says, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to just clam up and just kind of close my eyes and just stay as still as possible, because that threat has now gotten so big. It feels like all I can do is just grin and bear it. And then fawn, the fawn response, which is technically like, let me make friends with this piece of danger or this threat, the fawn response says, let me ask 100 people what they think I should do, right? We've all been there. I'm going to call Cindy, and I'm going to call Tori, and I'm going to call John, and I'm going to ask for their opinion, and I'll outsource the decision to them, right? We're all guilty of this. But here's the key, and this is what I want you to take away and write down, is that clarity is a byproduct of safety. If you are unsure about what to do, check in with your body and see how safe it is. Are you regulated, or are you in a chaotic, hypervigilant, stressed response where you're feeling the need to make an urgent decision, you're making a reactive decision? And in those moments, things are not going to feel clear. You're going to be confused, uncertain, unsure, but you feel the threat. So you're like, I've just got to make a decision real quick, because maybe FOMO, if I don't do it, I'll miss out, or this opportunity is never going to come again, or he might not ever ask me out, so I'll just do it anyway, right? And if you're having all of that scarcity thinking, then you're going to make decisions from that place. But clarity is a byproduct of safety. So you can't think clearly when your body is bracing for danger. If you do not feel safe, you are not going to make a decision that is actually in alignment with your highest, truest self. This is why so often we do things and we look back and we're like, wow, man, I wish I had made a different decision. But if we'd only taken the time to regulate and find safety internally before we make a choice, and sometimes this looks like in a conversation, hey, I need to take a couple minutes to step away to re-enter this conversation before we make any decisions, right? Before we decide we're going to break up, or before we decide I'm going to move out, or before I decide, any of those things, it's important to make big decisions, specifically big life-changing decisions, if not all decisions, from a grounded, clear, regulated place, because clarity comes from safety. And you can't think clearly when your body's bracing for danger or is perceiving threat in your environment. So we have to regulate before we choose. Okay. Now, how do we shift from being in those mental loops, overthinking, having the same thoughts? Because you guys know, if you've been listening to the show, you understand 90% of our thoughts are repetitive. Like, we are thinking the same thoughts over and over again. 80% of your thoughts are the same thoughts you had yesterday. Okay. So we're not very creative thinkers. A lot of times we're thinking subconsciously and we're repeating the same thoughts and staying in mental loops. So how do we shift from those mental loops into coming into a deep sense of safety in our bodies, and ultimately into inner leadership, where we can make decisions and lead our lives in directions that are positive, that are in alignment with the truth of our heart, versus the fear that may or may not be a real threat. It might just be something we've made up in our mind, or something we're feeling in a moment that could be shifted if we take time to connect with ourselves and really ask some deeper questions and really come back to the body. So the first thing I want you to understand here is that you can't outsource your power and expect to feel aligned. Okay. You can't ask other people what you should do, get their opinion, and then follow their rule and expect for it to feel authentic to you, because it didn't come from you, right? I'm not saying you can't listen to someone else's perspective and allow that to give you more of a perspective that maybe you didn't have before, or maybe that something someone said illuminates something inside of you and you're like, oh, now I feel like I've got an even clearer lens on what's true for me. That's absolutely possible, but you can't outsource your power to other people, to circumstances, to your environment, to what other people want, and expect it to feel aligned. Do you understand what I'm saying? So here's just a few practical shifts of how you can pull your power back so that you can make decisions from a true place, an authentic place, and an aligned place. And that's first regulate your nervous system. I'm going to say it again. You can't make clear decisions when you're dysregulated, when you're in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So what do? Okay. In a moment where you have to make a choice. Do I stay or do I go? Do I speak or do I withhold? Do I, take this risk or do I play it safe? I want you to take 5 deep breaths. I want you to inhale through your nose, exhale slowly through your mouth. Right. Slow down. We think when I did an episode a week or two ago about the difference between your intuition and fear and how to identify the difference. So if you haven't gone to listen to that, listen to last week's episode, because what you'll find in what I share there is the indicators of fear is that it's rushed, it's hurried, it's urgent, right? And so just taking some nice, deep, slow breaths brings us into this moment. It signals safety to the body, and it allows you to come into this moment to become aware of what's true, what's here, what do I need, what do I desire, versus just instantly reacting. So first, slow down. Second, if you're feeling dysregulated, which sadly, most people live in such a dysregulated state, and it's so normalized and it's so familiar. It's actually, for a lot of people, unfamiliar to feel safe. They don't know what safety feels like. So this is a practice, right, of learning to come into your body, especially when you have learned to have to survive. You haven't had the luxury or the training or the education or the guidance on how to feel safe within your own body, within the moment. So what we do, we rush, we are always trying to get to the next thing. We busy ourselves. And what does that do? It just gives us more choices, more decisions we have to make, right? So the next thing in regulating your system is move your body. So shake, stretch, walk. You want to discharge that anxious energy, and that anxious energy is all coming from the head. So all of that future tripping of what if conversation that's happening is all that anxious energy that is existing within your system. And that needs to be discharged or digested in some way. So the way that we digest that energy is through movement, through breath, sound, movement, and touch. If you've listened to the show before, I talk about it a lot. These are the big 4 ways that we regulate the nervous system. Breath is the first thing I said. Sound, you can use the sound of your voice to like scream, yell into a pillow, like just say the thing you need out loud to yourself, rehearse something. Movement, so walk, stretch, shake. That's how you dislodge or digest energy. And touch, right? Actually touch yourself. Put one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly as you breathe. This is signaling to yourself, I am safe. I am okay. It is a way that we self-soothe in moments where we feel overwhelmed. So a lot of this is awareness of learning, how often am I making choices from a dysregulated state? How many decisions in my life, when I look back on my past, did I decide from feeling anxious or afraid that if I don't, then they're going to leave me. If I don't, they're not going to like me anymore. If I don't, then insert negative consequence. I'll be punished. I'll be rejected. I'll be embarrassed. I'll be whatever. Versus making powerful choices from truth of like, I'm choosing to be committed to this because this is what I desire. This is where I want to be. Like, those are very different places to come from. So you want to tune into your body's wisdom because it is so wise. So where do I feel this contraction, or where do I feel an expansion? When I think and entertain the idea of entering into this relationship, when I entertain the thought of leaving this relationship or quitting this job, Does that feel like, oh my gosh, that feels like such an expansion. It feels like a relief to entertain that thought. Is there part of you that just exhales a little bit? If that is the dislodging of energy and it's an expansive feeling state. Or when you think about and entertain an idea, does it make you tighten? Does it make you tense? Does it make you contract? This is the body giving you feedback and information about what is a yes for you and what is a no for you. So when you imagine each choice, does your chest tighten? Does it open? These are things you can start to track within your own nervous system. The more you do and the more you build a relationship with yourself and asking these questions, you start to notice what is yes? What does a full-bodied yes feel like? What is a fuck yes in me compared to a no? And I like to go by the rule of thumb. If it's not a fuck yes, it's a no. If I'm not 100% committed and so excited about this, and this is like where I want to spend my time, energy, and effort, then it's a no for me. And I also get to practice saying no and not feeling guilty for it. Women. Yeah. Well, like, oh, that's the people pleaser. That's the fawn. What do you think I should do? You think I should go, don't you? You think I should just help, like I should just show up anyway, even though I don't really feel like it. How many times have we gaslit ourselves into choices that we know is a no for us, but we use guilt, we use shame as a way to convince us to do something because why? That's likely what was done to us when we were children. If our parents ever used guilt as a tactic to get us to do what they wanted us to do. Oh, well, you're not acting as good as your brother is. Why can't you be more like your brother? Why can't you be more like your sister? She's behaving and they're guilting you, right? And this is what we learn. Our nervous systems learn. Oh, it's not safe to honor my truth, or it's not safe to express myself in the way that I choose to because it might not be accepted or valued or celebrated. Instead, I might be shamed or guilted for those things, right? And so having a lot of compassion for the parts of you that are still learning, that are still growing into feeling safe within yourself, in learning to own your truth and practice your truth. So one way to practice your truth and kind of this truth test is close your eyes and take a breath. Drop into your heart, because we want to drop out of the head. We want to come into the heart. And maybe you just need to take a couple moments here to do that and ride this elevator. Every breath, just ride it down into the body. Okay. And ask yourself, if I wasn't afraid, what would I choose? If I wasn't afraid of there was going to be any negative consequence to making this decision, what would I choose? That's going to illuminate something deeper in you. So when you ask that question, I want you to stop, and then I want you just to listen. What arises in you? Because my friend, it's so easy to say when you are thinking about making a decision, I don't know. Trust me, when I have so many clients come to me and I ask them a question about, well, what do you want to do? Right? They're like, I don't know if I should do this or to do this. I don't know what to do with my life. And I'm like, what do you want to do? And the answer is, I don't know. Right? And they're stuck in indecision. There's so many options. Well, what would you do if you weren't afraid? If there was no negative, if you couldn't fail, then listen. Because you do know. If you just haven't learned to trust that knowing yet, you've talked yourself out of your truth for a really long time. But I would assert that you are so much more wise than you give yourself credit for. You do have the answer. But you just have to reprogram the narrative that's been telling you that you don't know. So let's debunk some limiting beliefs here that are probably fueling your indecision, right? If I make the wrong choice, I'll regret it forever. I don't know enough yet to decide. So I just need to get more information, right? Before I can make the right choice. Or maybe it sounds like someone else probably knows better than me, right? And so you're discrediting your own intelligence or your own wisdom or your own advice. And so you think, and you outsource that power and you're like, someone else knows better. These are 3 different beliefs I've just given you as examples that are rooted in self-doubt and they're rooted in perfectionism. So we can have empathy and compassion for where that stems from, because we've talked about that. And we get to be responsible if we want to be conscious leaders, if we want to be grown-ups instead of little children in adult bodies, then we have to be responsible for shifting these belief systems. So what if we just tried on some affirmations to replace them as a way to shift this narrative that you don't know the answer to something more like, I can trust myself to figure it out as I go. Or there's no wrong path, only information. Because I remember at a time when I was thinking about starting this podcast and I was like, should I start it? And all the thoughts of what are people going to think? Are they going to laugh at me? Are they going to think I'm stupid? Who do I think I am? It was all the self-doubt conversation. And one thing that helped me is like, here, especially when I was starting my business, is what's the worst thing that could happen? Play the worst case scenario out. And am I going to die? No. So like, I might as well try. And if I have the belief system that there's no wrong path, there's just making this choice is going to give me more clarity. Like, listen, sis, like this is so many people right now. You're thinking about trying a new food that you've never tried before, but you're like, I just need more information. I need more people to tell me if it's good or not. I need to like spend some more time on YouTube or Google to find out if I want to try it versus let me just try it and I'm going to get the clarity on whether I like it or not. Right? Like sometimes, a lot of time, the clarity that you're seeking is not going to come from thinking more. I see this all the time on coaching calls when people are deciding if they want to pursue a path of doing the deep work on themselves and they come down to the decision point. If you've ever been on any kind of sales call, right? And you're thinking about investing in something, whether it's a coaching program or going on some kind of retreat, or you're thinking about buying a car and you've done all the extensive research, or you're thinking about taking a vacation and you've gotten people's opinions and you've looked up, reviews, and then it comes down to the moment you need to decide and you're like, oh, I just need more time. I just need to think more. No, a lot of times we don't need to think more. We need to choose, get off the fence, because you're split. You're splitting your energy. You've got one foot in, you've got one foot out. You're not moving in any direction. And in the trying, in the action of doing, more clarity comes. If I'm trying a food I've never tried before, I don't know if I'm going to like it till I try it. And that's how I approach my life. Is the answer is, I don't know how I'm going to feel about it till I do it. So if somebody's like, do you want to do this? Or I'm invited into something that might stretch me outside of my comfort zone. I recently got an invitation to a party and I know this environment is going to stretch me. And there's part of me that's like, I'm not ready. I don't think I'm ready. I don't want to go. And I'm remembering the promise and the agreement that I've made with myself is like, I'm not going to assume I know how I'm going to feel about something till I do it. So why not try? And then I'm going to have the clarity about, yes, this thing is for me, or no, it's not. Like if I think about this in dating, this is a place a lot of people get in their head, right? And they don't give people a chance and they think they know everything about somebody just based on their profile or whatever it is. And, but here's the thing, you go on one date and you get information. Is it wrong if you don't like him and it doesn't turn into your husband? No, it's not. There wasn't a wrong path, only information about, oh, I really enjoyed that conversation. I'd love to see that person again. Or we didn't really vibe and the energy's not there and I don't feel any chemistry. And so that also gave me clarity. Versus sitting at home and wondering and thinking and strategizing and never doing, right? So again, we want to reframe the narrative around I can't or I don't know to I can or I'm figuring it out as I go and I can trust myself to make decisions and learn. Because if you have a growth mindset, you understand that failure is just in perspective. I don't believe in failure. I believe in learning and growing. And so all of life is just giving me feedback. And if something doesn't work, it's just giving me feedback and I can pivot and I can learn, I can adjust. So with that, my perspective is every decision leads me closer to clarity. Every decision I'm making is leading me closer to clarity. So these are just a few reframes you can start to adopt and absorb and practice in your life. And this is about coming back to trusting yourself. And trusting yourself happens in the micro moments. It happens in the subtle shifts. It happens in the decision to listen to yourself versus listening to the world, to what other people think, to what someone else wants you to do. Because most of us, a lot of us have been outsourcing our decisions and our power to other people for a really, really long time. And I understand that a lot of that's rooted in past trauma and conditioning, and it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Hear me when I say that, but it is your responsibility to do something about it so that you can step into the life that you desire, so that you can start to build and create the life, the future, the relationship, the abundance, the wealth, the prosperity that you deserve. But you can't if you do not trust yourself. You can't if you continue to silence and not listen to the wisdom of your own body. So the truth about clarity is that you don't have to wait for it to arrive. You get to create it through movement, through choice, because clarity lives on the other side of your commitments. Because when you stay in limbo, like I was saying, when you are split energetically on the fence, you create energetic leakage. So you start to leak energy and your power starts to drain because you're not standing in decision. You're 1 foot in and you're 1 foot out. But the moment that you say yes to something, to the path, to the pivot, to the relationship, to the investment, to the leaving, the universe starts to rearrange itself around that declaration, around that choice, around that commitment. I remember I say this to everybody who comes into ceremony and works with me doing psychedelics, whether it's for the first time. And a lot of people, when they're thinking about working with plant medicine, they're thinking about coming to ceremony. It's a big decision because they've never done anything like this before. And they know it's going to be life-changing. They know there's going to be a shift that happens. And it confronts them with, are you ready for that? Are you willing to take it to the next level of your growth, of your healing? And a lot of us in those moments of choice, we get afraid because we don't know what's going to happen. And we're afraid of change. But I'll tell you this, the moment that people decide to step into that space, that ceremonial space, the moment I decided to do ayahuasca or psilocybin for the first time, the moment I decided to go on my first healing retreat, life started to shift and rearrange itself around me based on the declaration I made that I'm all in. Like the medicine itself starts to work in your life. It starts to reveal and show things to you. The moment I decided to go on retreat and I made the commitment, my energy started to align with the new choice and the new version of me that I was claiming and stepping into. Because the truth is, decisions are declarations of self-leadership. And if you want to lead others, my friend, you got to first start with learning to lead yourself. Okay, that's where it starts. So if you've always been stuck in analysis paralysis or you struggle with that a lot, I want to lovingly call you forward and invite you into this idea that you're not really confused. You're just scared. And that's okay. But you don't need to let fear be your decision maker and driver in your life. And instead, you get to come home to your body, listen to your knowing, and let that be enough because it truly, truly is. Okay. If this episode has resonated with you, my invitation is to share this with a friend, potentially. You never know how much that can support somebody. I also invite you to take a screenshot, maybe tag me on Instagram. You can find me at @ToriGordon. That's my personal page. The Coachable Podcast is where you can find the show. And just share with me your biggest takeaway. I'd love to hear how this affected you and what you took away from it. And truly, if you're ready to deepen your self-trust and learn how to lead your own life, then get in my DMs. DM me the word decide and I'll send you the details on how you can work with me one-on-one inside my high-performing leadership coaching program. And that's all I've got for you today. my invitation is to listen to yourself and take action from that place. And if you do, I promise everything in the universe will start to organize around that declaration. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you next week on the Coachable Podcast. Bye.